A cold wave of dread washed over me, pulling me from the nightmare. My eyes sprang open, but the darkness that greeted me was just as profound as the one I'd left behind. For a moment, I couldn't place where I was, my mind a jumbled mess of half-remembered horrors. Then, the weight of the oppressive atmosphere slammed back, the air thick with the cloying scent of decay, a musty, sweet odor that spoke of things long dead. The temple. The goddamn cursed temple. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs as I remembered the golden mask, the chilling voice, the burning in my hand. Fumbling for my flashlight, I aimed the beam at my palm. A small black mark marred the skin, a single drop of blood welling up at its center. It pulsed with a dull heat, a sinister throb that mirrored the fear coiling in my gut. "David, you okay in there?" Sam's voice, muffled by the thick stone, did little to ease the tremor in my hand. His words seemed to echo strangely in the oppressive silence, bouncing off the unseen walls and twisting into something distorted, something menacing. "Yeah, I'm fine," I called back, my voice raspy and thin. The words felt like a lie as soon as I spoke them. There was something wrong, deeply wrong, with this place. I could feel it in my bones, a cold certainty that sank its teeth into my soul and refused to let go. I had to get out. Turning from the statue, I took a hesitant step back, the hair on the back of my neck prickling with the sensation of being watched. The air seemed to crackle with unseen energy, the shadows in the corners deepening, writhing with a life of their own. A low, guttural sound, like something ancient clearing its throat, echoed through the chamber. I froze, my blood turning to ice in my veins. It came again, closer this time, followed by the distinct sound of stone scraping against stone. Something was moving in the darkness. "David? What was that?" Sam's voice was closer now, laced with a nervous tremor that mirrored my own growing fear. I could hear his footsteps echoing in the passage behind me, each step a testament to his courage, or perhaps his foolishness. Unlike me, Sam wasn't ruled by a thirst for the past, for the secrets buried beneath layers of dust and time. He was here for me, for the comfortable myth of our friendship forged years ago in the hallowed halls of academia. He should have stayed in Chicago, safe with his books and his comfortable illusions about the world. Just some fallen debris. I lied, hating the tremor in my own voice. My hand, still clammy from the touch of the mask, clenched into a fist. I couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. He wouldn't understand. Sam was a creature of reason, of logic and deduction. He lived in a world where ancient curses and whispering gods were the stuff of campfire stories, not the chilling reality I seemed to be tumbling into. "You sure you're okay?" Sounded like something big just moved. His voice was closer now, hesitant, a flicker of doubt creeping into his tone. He'd always been too smart for his own good, too perceptive. "Just echoes," I said, forcing a laugh that came out as more of a choked gasp. The air, heavy and oppressive, made it hard to breathe, the weight of the temple pressing down on me like a physical thing. Or maybe it was just the fear, twisting my insides into knots, stealing my breath and replacing it with a cold, prickling dread. The mask pulsed in my hand, a sickening heat spreading from the point where my skin had brushed the metal. It wasn't a burn, not exactly, but a deeper, more insidious heat, like my blood itself was turning to fire. The air around me seemed to shimmer, the oppressive darkness taking on a strange, fluid quality. The carvings on the walls, barely visible in the weak beam of my flashlight, seemed to writhe and contort, the grotesque figures twisting in their eternal dance of agony and ecstasy. "David, you're freaking me out, man." Sam's voice, tight with a tension I could no longer deny, snapped through the fragile threads of my control. I shoved the mask into my pack, the sudden movement sending a jolt of pain up my arm. "Be right there," I croaked, my voice a dry rasp in the stillness. The air grew colder, the feeling of unseen eyes intensifying until I felt naked, exposed in the suffocating gloom. The shadows in the corners pulsed with a life of their own, no longer content to lurk at the edge of vision. They stretched towards me, hungry, reaching fingers of inky blackness. I stumbled back, tripping over a loose stone and falling heavily against the base of the obsidian statue. The impact jarred me to my core. the coldness of the stone leaching through my clothes, chilling me to the bone. The air around me crackled, charged with an unseen energy that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. Then I saw it. A flicker of movement at the edge of the flashlight beam. A shape coalescing from the shadows. It was humanoid, vaguely, but elongated. Skeletal. Its limbs too long. Its joints bent at impossible angles. It swayed slightly, a grotesque marionette animated by a cruel and unseen hand. Its eyes, two burning embers in the darkness, locked onto mine, and a primal terror, raw and ancient, seized me in its grip. My breath caught in my throat, a strangled gasp lost in the suffocating air. The creature, if it could be called that, turned its head, as if curious. It moved with an unsettling grace, its limbs contorting at angles no living being should possess. Panic surged through me, a cold wave that broke over me, leaving me shaking and breathless. I scrambled back, pushing myself away from the obsidian statue, my back scraping against rough stone. The creature, a grotesque parody of life, followed me. Its movements smooth, almost predatory. Each step it took seemed to suck the air from my lungs, replacing it with a terror so profound it felt like a physical thing. "Sam, get back," I choked out. The words a useless prayer in the oppressive silence. I could hear him behind me, his footsteps slowing, a question forming on his lips. But I couldn't repeat the warning. Couldn't bear to tear my gaze from the creature as it stalked closer, its burning eyes never leaving mine. The flashlight slipped from my grasp, clattering to the stone floor, the beam skittering wildly, casting grotesque shadows that danced in a macabre waltz. I was plunged into near darkness, the creature's silhouette a shifting, writhing thing in the gloom. It was closer now, close enough to touch, close enough for me to see the way its skin stretched taut over bones, to make out the glint of sharp, predatory teeth in the sliver of light that pierced the darkness. The smell of decay, thick and cloying, wafted from its form, a stench that spoke of death and something else, something ancient and utterly wrong. Another step. It swayed closer, its skeletal fingers twitching, reaching for me with a hunger that chilled me to the bone. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing myself for the inevitable touch. The searing pain I knew was coming, but the pain didn't come. A low, guttural sound, like the rasp of bone against stone, echoed in the darkness behind me. I forced my eyes open, a silent plea for it to be my imagination, a trick of the shadows. But the creature was gone. The space where it had stood, so close I could have sworn I felt its breath on my face, was empty. Relief, sweet and fleeting, washed over me. Then, a new horror unfolded. Sam stepped into the pool of light cast by the fallen flashlight. His face was a mask of confusion, his eyes searching the darkness for the source of my terror. "David? What the hell?" He trailed off, his gaze falling to the spot where I huddled against the base of the statue. And then, with a speed that defied comprehension, the creature lunged. It didn't emerge from the shadows, didn't crawl or slither. It simply materialized in front of Sam, its skeletal hand shooting out, its claws finding purchase in his throat. Sam let out a strangled cry, a sound cut short as the creature slammed him against the stone wall. The impact reverberated through the chamber, a sickening crunch of bone and flesh. I tasted bile at the back of my throat, but the scream died in my chest, trapped by the sheer horror of what I was witnessing. The creature, its face now inches from Sam's, leaned in close, its form flickering in the dancing light. For a moment, I could see it with a horrifying clarity that defied the gloom. Its skin, stretched taut over a skull-like visage, wasn't flesh, but something more akin to dried parchment, stretched thin over a framework of bone and sinew. Its eyes, burning with an unholy light, seemed to drink in Sam's terror, his fading life force. Then, with a horrifying wet sound, it tore into Sam's throat. The stench of blood, hot and metallic, filled the air, making my stomach churn. Sam's blood. It stained the creature's skeletal hand, a grotesque badge of honor. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I choked back a sob, pressing myself further into the cold stone, as if trying to become part of the temple itself. The creature, Its hunger, seemingly insatiable, continued to feed, oblivious to my presence. Sam's struggles, at first frantic and desperate, were fading now, his body racked with tremors that had nothing to do with life. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the image, seared onto the back of my eyelids, remained. The creature's skeletal hand, the blood, the look of pure terror in Sam's eyes. Dear God, the eyes. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My world had shrunk to the suffocating darkness, the coppery tang of blood, and the wet, tearing sounds that echoed in the vast chamber. A low, satisfied growl rumbled from the creature as it tore another chunk from Sam's throat. The sound, primal and sickeningly intimate, pierced through the fog of my horror. It was the sound of a predator reveling in its kill, its hunger momentarily sated. And then, silence. A silence so profound, so heavy, it felt like the weight of the entire temple pressing down on me. I dared to open my eyes a fraction, my gaze traveling from the pool of blood that was all that remained of my friend to the creature standing over it. It was still for a moment, its head cocked to the side, as if listening for something. Then, with a slow, deliberate turn, it looked at me. My legs, shaky and useless, finally gave way, sending me crashing to the ground. Sobbing, I curled into a ball, the smell of Sam's blood acrid in my nostrils. The creature, its grotesque feast complete, turned its head, fixing me with its burning gaze. I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the end. But the end didn't come. Instead, a voice, cold and devoid of inflection, slithered through the darkness. He touched the mask. It said, the words echoing in the chamber, "He is marked for the taking." I cracked open an eye. The creature, still as death, stood beside the obsidian statue, its gaze fixed on a point somewhere above my head. My gaze followed its line of sight, landing on a spot high above the statue's head. A faint light, barely perceptible in the gloom, emanated from the wall. And then, with a sickening grinding sound, a section of the wall began to retract. A hidden doorway. The voice came again, closer now, whispering from the very air itself. "The way is open," it hissed. "The ritual must be completed." The creature, as if compelled by an unseen force, turned and glided towards the newly revealed opening. Hope, fragile and desperate, flickered in the ashes of my despair. It was leaving. Maybe, just maybe, I could still escape this nightmare. But as quickly as it had risen, the hope died. The creature paused at the threshold of the doorway, its head swiveling back to fix me with its burning gaze. "He stays," the voice rasped, its tone brooking no argument. "The curse demands a sacrifice." It locked eyes with me, a predator savoring the terror of its prey. The silence in the chamber was thick, suffocating. The only sound, the rasp of my own breath, echoing in my ears like a death rattle. I knew, with a chilling certainty, that this was it. The end. The creature shifted, taking a step closer, its skeletal hand flexing, claws scraping against the stone floor. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but sit here waiting for the inevitable. But my body refused to obey. The obsidian god, perched high on its dais, watched the scene unfold with a cold amusement etched into its ancient features. And then, an idea, born of desperation, sparked in the depths of my terror. The mask. The voice had said the curse was tied to the mask. Maybe, just maybe, if I got rid of it. I fumbled with my pack, my fingers clumsy and numb. The creature watched me, its head cocked to the side, a grotesque parody of curiosity twisting its skeletal features. I could feel its gaze on me, a tangible weight that pressed down on my chest, stealing my breath. Finally, my fingers closed around the smooth, cold metal of the mask. I yanked it from my pack, holding it out towards the creature, an offering and a plea. "Take it," I croaked, my voice cracking with terror. "Take the mask, and let me go." The creature hesitated, its gaze fixed on the mask in my trembling hand. For a moment, the only sound in the chamber was the frantic thudding of my own heart. Then, with a speed that belied its skeletal frame, it lunged. But it wasn't coming for me. The creature shot past me, a blur of shadows and fury, and slammed into the obsidian statue. The impact reverberated through the chamber, a sound like thunder echoing through the vast emptiness. I watched, stunned, as the creature clawed at the statue's base, a high-pitched keening escaping its throat. And then, the world exploded in blinding light. The light faded, leaving behind a ringing silence and the taste of ozone in the air. My vision swam, blurry shapes resolving slowly into the familiar, grotesque contours of the chamber. The obsidian statue, once a monolith of dread, lay shattered on the dais, shards of black stone scattered like broken teeth. Dust, thick and choking, hung in the air, a shroud over the carnage. I coughed, struggling to sit up, my body a symphony of aches and tremors. My hand, still clutching the golden mask, throbbed with a dull ache, the mark on my palm a dark, puckered brand. It had worked. Somehow, offering the mask had triggered. What? A trap? A safe? Whatever it was, the creature, the shadows, were gone. The silence, once oppressive, was now a fragile, precious thing. Sam died. The memory of his death, so visceral and immediate just moments ago, felt distant now, like a bad dream recalled in the harsh light of day. I looked around, expecting to see him sprawled on the ground, a mangled testament to the temple's cruelty. But there was nothing. No blood, no body. Only dust and the scattered remnants of the obsidian god. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and I leaned against the cool stone floor, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I had survived, escaped, but the cost. The mask felt heavy in my hand, a tangible reminder of the darkness I'd unleashed. The inscription on its surface, barely visible in the gloom, seemed to mock me. A language I couldn't read, but understood with a chilling clarity. The curse wasn't broken. It had merely shifted, found a new vessel. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the core, that I wasn't leaving this temple alone. I stumbled out of the crumbling temple mouth, the taste of dust and fear thick in my throat. The desert sun, a blazing inferno in the afternoon sky, hit me like a physical blow. I staggered, my legs shaky beneath me, and sank to my knees on the baking sand. Gone. All gone. The temple, the creature, Sam, swallowed by the earth, or by something even worse, leaving behind only dust and the echo of my own terror. I should have felt relief, gratitude for my unlikely escape, but the shadows of that cursed place clung to me, whispers of ancient evil clinging to my skin like cobwebs. The weight of Sam's death, a crushing stone in my gut, extinguished any flicker of triumph. My hand, throbbing with a dull ache, instinctively went to my pocket. The mask. It was still there, a cold, hard lump against my thigh. A shiver, colder than the grave, ran down my spine. I'd thought to leave it behind, bury it in the rubble of that unholy place. But something, some instinct I couldn't quite place, held me back. As I stared at the crumbling facade of the temple, a sliver of doubt, sharp and insidious, pierced through the fog of my exhaustion. What if I hadn't escaped at all? What if the curse, the entity that haunted that place, had simply found a new vessel? My gaze fell on the golden mask in my hand. The inscription on its surface, once meaningless, seemed to writhe before my eyes, the lines twisting and turning, forming words I understood with a sickening clarity. You are mine now. The desert air, still and silent moments before, erupted in a chorus of whispers, the voices ancient and full of malice. They swirled around me, a vortex of despair, and I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I would never truly be free of that cursed place. The shadows of the temple had followed me home,